Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Ampire. Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone. Rough start this weekend for the Capitals. Rough game for the Commanders, Callow. Rough one. Ooh, rough one.
Yeah, not a winning weekend, as we would say.
No, not a winning weekend. Let's start with the Commanders, please. Let me start with the positive, okay? The positive, which is actually this. And this is new, and I think deserved, but new. And this is how far we've come from the old. The spin is actually pretty positive coming out of this, okay? I think so. Maybe you could disagree with me. I wanted to see what the reaction would be. Their defense, Washington's, gave up 484 yards yesterday. Literally could not stop them. Had 1 3 and out and had a couple of breaks. Had the tip pass interception, had the mishandled snap turned into a field goal, and then a 3 and out. And then outside of that, the Ravens were literally unstoppable. Okay. And that, I think, I'll get into all of this. I think two things are true here. I think a lot of that is them, and a lot of that is us too. But I will say this, like, just listening to the press conferences, seeing how everything was portrayed, all the questions to Jaden Daniels about, but you went toe-to-toe with Lamar Jackson. And while they're sitting there going, no moral victories, and I appreciate that, no moral victories, no moral victories, no moral victories. In the past, I'm not sure it would have been portrayed that way. So I'm actually happy today that it seems that most people who cover the team, at least closely or not closely, and just show up for the big games like this, seem to have been impressed enough, overlooked the part about how the defense gave up almost 500 yards, and are kind of largely going, yeah, but they're 4-2 and they lost by 1 score. So I guess it's not so bad.
No, I would agree with you. I had to watch the game on delay, and I just looked at the stats when the game was over and went, oh, well, the defense was terrible. That was the game story. And while, yes, they were pretty bad, it was more about Jaden keeping them in this game as well. Yes. And with your thought there too of the spin coming out being positive, this is something we actually didn't really talk about last week, and we should have, was that they could afford to lose this game. It was an AFC matchup. It's not going to be important in a tiebreaker. Like, that was one thing we probably didn't touch on that I think really we probably should have. Like, if there's a game you could lose in any season, it's always your AFC opponent games. And they went toe-to-toe. They lost. But at the end of the day, number 5 steps out there on the field. They still have a chance, including against a team like that, is pretty much what I'm getting at.
So I appreciated the positive spin. Jaden keeps opening the eyes. He clearly, there's no stage that he can't handle. And so we'll get to him in a moment, because I really want to talk about the tough part of this. And it's time to have real talk on the defense. It wasn't good, it wasn't. And I'll say this, there are 2 things to me that are kind of true about this. Well, I'll get to Baltimore in a minute. Let me talk about Washington. They have had a hard time stopping the run in general. This is the best rush offense maybe in the last 10, 15 years, let alone, this season. They came in averaging 211 yards on the ground through 5 games. That's stupid. Like, in the modern NFL, where a lot of teams throw the ball a lot, that's ridiculous, actually, that anybody would average something like that. So, and I'll get to the Ravens in a minute, which is why I think people are downplaying how good they are. Like, they had a slow start. It's picking up now where they kind of have this unstoppable force that's going on. But for Washington's defense, 2 things were exposed badly here. Their defensive line on the whole, and now that John and Dorrance Armstrong are hurt, and I don't know how bad it is, and we'll find out later today. John's doesn't sound good. Dorrance, I don't know, but John's doesn't sound good. But we'll see. I don't know what it is. So, and they haven't done the test. They didn't reveal anything last night, and I don't know as we're doing this morning. We'll find out today, I hope. They kind of can't afford to lose people for sure. and their front isn't stout enough to handle something like this. I think I said last week, I go, if you hold them to 150 on the ground, which sounds crazy, you're actually doing okay. If you get them around 125, you're doing well. And I defy anybody to hold that team to 100 yards rushing in any game at all between Henry and Jackson. And the one thing they did relatively well was Jackson really didn't kill him with his legs. He also didn't need to. And Henry, who didn't have a ton of rush yards in the first half, but just kind of, it got too easy in the second half. This team got worn down pretty hard. I think the physical play was on the side of the Ravens this week. I think some of the magic of what happened the first 5 weeks with Washington was not just that Jaden is so far ahead of the curve, but if you look across the board, they were winning the line of scrimmage, specifically on offense. And on the last couple of weeks, winning it on defense too, and it paid off. The game was taken to them. So this was one of those, they were shown what a championship caliber team looks and feels like with Hall of Fame players running the ball, two of them. They got two of them, two Hall of Fame players running the ball. And Washington's defense wasn't capable of matching that. And so I think, like, let's just be real about it. Like, they're frankly not good enough to play with a team that can do things like the Ravens can do. And granted, that's the number one offense and the number one rush offense for a reason. Nobody can really right now, but the weakness that they have, especially in run defense, over the course of a 60-minute game, was shown badly yesterday, especially in the second half.
No, the Ravens offense playing their own version of complementary football, essentially, right? Like, this defense sold out to stop the run, and then Lamar passed it all over them. And then in the second half, when they tried to adjust to that, Henry went wild. I think Henry was only held to, like, when I was watching it, like 30 or 40 yards in the first half. It was a very low total. But then when they had to stop the pass, they couldn't. And then when they tried to sell it to, stop the run, they couldn't. And so that was the Ravens version of complementary football, in that they don't need a big lead. They just need a lead, period, to go and do that. And that's exactly what happened. Like, that's why that didn't get out of hand yesterday. And what I was most worried about was they only needed to get up by 10. Not like the Commanders have done in the last few weeks, but they only need to get up by a little bit to just really start milking that clock and then just match you the rest of the way. And that's exactly what happened.
That's right. On the pass defense. So when I saw that, I realized it was bad, but I didn't realize how bad till this morning when I looked at the stats again. Did you know the Ravens had 5 players who averaged at least 13 yards a catch?
Huh. No, did not know that.
5. Okay. Like, it's one thing if one guy goes off, right? Like, that happens, like 5. So that means every play works and works big, chunk plays. Mark Andrews, and I know Mark Andrews is great, but he hasn't actually had a very good offensive season. He was averaging 2 catches, 12 yards a game. They were throwing the ball more to Likely and Kohler in recent weeks. Andrews was very engaged. When I watched on film, he was blocking downfield. It's not like he was pouting or anything. He was very engaged, and it's a matter of time because he's a very good receiver. But he led them. He didn't lead them in receiving yards, but he was like second or third. He had 16 yards a catch. Bateman had chunk yards down the field. The one catch to Aguilar was 25 yards down the field. 5 different players, double-digit, 13 yards per catch, and I think 3 of them had 17 yards and 2 were over 20. So they had no answer for anybody, like literally anybody. And then I think I talked about this on Friday, and it really occurred to me yesterday. I was talking about it in the pregame a lot. Zay Flowers was going to be a problem for them because, I think corner is our weakest position. I know that's not a secret, right? Like, Emmanuel Forbes wasn't even active yesterday. Like, corner is the weakest position this team has. But and I don't love the matchups on the outside, but we haven't faced somebody like this year. The extremely quick, extremely adept, movable part who can line up in the slot. And the more I thought about him as the week progressed and I watched him, I went, who in the world are we putting on him? Who's covering him? Because that in the future, hopefully, is San Rastel. But it's not right now because they've asked him to go on the outside. So who are we putting on somebody like that? And when we sold out for the run, this dude's running wild because we can't cover somebody like that. The good news is that there aren't a lot of teams that have one that's as good as him. Like I remember back in week 2 when Wan'Dale Robinson got 1 million catches in week 1. And I looked at him and I went, we can't cover guys like that. He's not as good as Flowers, but he plays a very similar role where he's in the slot. They move him around. He's kind of quick, not as shifty, not as many big plays in him, but a tier below and adept at it. And they didn't throw the ball to him very much. They just went to Neighbors. And I thought it was a mistake. Even Neighbors had a huge game, but I thought it was a mistake because I don't think we have somebody to cover this. And Flowers is as good at this position as probably anybody in the NFL right now. And it exposed us. It's not just the run defense. Like if we get caught with a slot receiver who has this kind of quickness, we can't cover that either. And I was not surprised. I said it to Logan before the game. I said it to Jerry Sandusky before the game. I go, he's going to be a problem for us. We don't have anybody that can cover him. And Baltimore's going to figure that out fast. And the second we loaded up to stop the run, and we're going one-on-one with that guy, it exposed it bad early.
This mismatch was a stark reminder of just how much Adam Peters has to do with the roster. Like this was indicative of what they've gone, like what they've gone through.
They need 2 corners.
Right. But
Sanders still should be playing in that position. He's just not playing in it right now.
No, exactly. But what I think it was a perfect kind of juxtaposition of the two franchises. You have Washington, who didn't even have Emmanuel Forbes active yesterday, which meant, I think it was Galdi that tweeted this earlier today. He said the last 6 first-round picks were inactive on Sunday or traded or released. And then you have their first-round pick from last year with Flowers going off. It was just a pretty much a reminder for me of there's still work to do on this roster. The weakest position is cornerback right now. And by the way, like we're getting the kind of over criticism of Benjamin St. Juste yesterday too.
100%.
I know he didn't play well, but we need to keep saying this. He should be the second or third corner. Like he should be covering who he's covering. So like everyone needs to calm down on that. He just is who he is.
It's too much. The guy is playing hard. Okay. He's not a number 1 corner. He's being asked to be in this offense. They had to kind of put him on an island yesterday because of the situation with their run game. That's they're the number 1 offense for a reason. I mean, like that's a very, very difficult ask. And I'm with you on that. Like he got jobbed on 2 calls yesterday, 2 of them bad. Like the one where Bateman fell down and he got a PI for it was ridiculous. And the one early that was a 3rd down play that gave him a 1st and goal on the first Henry touchdown run, that shouldn't have been a PI either, and they called it. That would have been a field goal. This game could have been very different if either one of those things didn't happen. He's going to give up plays. He is not Sauce Gardner. Like, everybody needs I'm with you on that. Like, every week I'm seeing them hit him over the head, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't actually see him playing that poorly. And you know what? Like, you go cover Mike Evans, okay? Like, give me a break. Like, he's the one having to cover the best receiver on the team. In this case, he didn't have to cover Flowers, but that's when I went, that's where Sanders still supposed to be. In the future, he will be. He's going to be addressed. And he's not playing it now because they need him on the outside. And the Flowers, I went, oh, they're going to kill him. And then once they got the lead and then everybody backed off, Baltimore wisely started running the ball. And that is really the bread and butter. And I'll just say this, after seeing them in person, and, watching them on film and then seeing this and thinking about where they're going. I also want to give Todd Monken a lot of credit. I felt this way by the end of last week, too. Like, a lot of the magic for Washington has been the play across the board, the buy-in, the chemistry. Jaden's been great, but Cliff Kingsbury's been extremely creative. He was, again, yesterday. Very creative. Monken is, too. Go watch them early in the downs. They're not just handing it off to Henry and trying to get a few yards and then go from there. They're very creative in how they get into all of their sets of downs. So I want to give them a lot of credit. And right now, this is the best thing going in the NFL, the most unstoppable thing in the NFL. It's Henry and Lamar. Like, if those guys stay healthy, their run game is going to be the best thing that's going in the NFL. A couple years ago, it was the Eagles run game. Eagles, like the tush-push thing on 3rd and short was an unstoppable thing. These guys are unstoppable. I defy you to hold them to 100 yards if you're a team defense. Defy you to do it. I don't think anybody will, short of weird turnovers that get way down and feel like they got to throw the ball a lot. Like, you will not be able to do it. And this is why I feel like, and I'll just say this about Baltimore, and I'll get back into Washington in a second. If I'm them and I see this right now and know what their offense is, like they are, in my opinion, like their defense is their defense. I think they're a little slower on the back end. I don't think they can get a lot of pressure with 4, so they have to bring pressure. But I think they're good enough, and I think they'll get better enough to be competitive enough with that offense. If I'm them, I'm telling you, and this is rare for them, but screw it. At the deadline, they should go get a top-tier receiver and go all in on this and just go, you know what? We're winning championships, but we're going to get Kevin Durant anyway. You know what I mean? Like they could be the Warriors of Durant, Steph, Clay, Draymond with their offense. Their run game is so good and so unstoppable that if you put one top-tier receiver opposite of Flowers who can catch those errant passes like Devontae Adams, that off this year, and I would lean in on it because look at the AFC right now. Do you trust the Jets? No, they should be good. They've already boat raced the Bills. Nobody else in the AFC East is going to catch them. Houston's very good. How good, I don't know. There's nobody else in that division you're worried about. The AFC North is turned into, the Bengals are in too big of a hole. The Browns are done. And you know Pittsburgh's offense can't score enough. They'll be in tough games with them. But Pittsburgh's offense can't score enough in the end to beat them. And the AFC West is a one-team race. It's the Chiefs. Go all in. Like the landscape is so wide open, even if it's out of character for them, they should be the ones going to get someone like Devontae Adams and just leaning in on it and knowing that their defense is going to be average to above average. Hope it gets better because it always does, but have an offense that is not just the best in the league, but by far the best in the league, and tell everybody else, try and stop us. That's what I would do if I'm them.
Well, I mean, the other part of that too is like, look at the offensive stats, and then you don't, like, if you were to show me the offensive stats yesterday and not show me the score, I would have said, oh, the Ravens must have won by 13 points, right? But this is what's happening too. The way their offense goes is they are playing in these close games. So I agree with you. Like they need one more piece to kind of put them out because
over the top.
Because this has been their death knell in the playoffs the past 3 or 4 times. They lose a very close game. Like they have a very good offense, a very good defense. But then guess what happens when Patrick Mahomes comes to town last year and you don't run the ball? They beat you in the end. Like I'm with you. They need one more piece to give them literally one more possession is really what it ends up being. And I agree with you. They just need one more piece because that offense is pretty perfect for the playoffs.
Yes. I was texting with a member of my friends after the game that are Baltimore fans. And I said this to them and they were like, we have bigger problems on the defense. And I go, you're not going to fix that. I go, I actually think they'll get a little bit better as it goes along. Like you have a new young defensive coordinator. They just brought Ding Pease back. Like you guys will get better. You're not bad. Like you're not bad. You'll get better. I think there are some flaws. You're a little, in my opinion, slow on the back end. You have to resort to pressure because you don't have premier pass rushers and you can't get there with 4 often enough. So you're forced into situations, but they're good enough and they have good enough players to be competitive with teams. So do something just to make your offense so ridiculously unstoppable that it's going to force anybody to score 30 plus to beat you. And you know who can do that? You know who else can do it? Very few. Very few. So that's what I would do if I'm them. All right, back to Washington. This actually was a good sign to me, and I kind of knew this was going to happen. Baltimore also came in with a very good run defense. Now, I think that that's skewed a little bit here. They've had some leads in games that have evaporated. So that means teams are throwing the ball a ton at the end of games. They're not running it at all. And therefore, I think the numbers are a touch skewed. Like, I don't look at them and go, that's an all-time great run defense. I think they're very good at it, but I think the numbers are skewed by the fact that teams who have to come back against them end up throwing it a lot to try to come back quickly, like Dallas did a few weeks ago, like Buffalo did when they were getting boat raced, like Cincinnati did when they were in this kind of up and down battle with them. And Cincinnati doesn't run the ball very well. So the numbers may be a little off there, but they are what they are, and they're good at it. So I don't want to take that away from them. I think they're good at it. Washington knew this going in. B-Rob was out, so their number one running back's out. It did not surprise me that this was going to be the first time that we had to see, if you have to throw the ball 30 to 40 times and run it 20, what does that look like? Because we haven't been forced into this yet. And Jaden passed again. So this is another test. So if there is some positive spin, and the thing that I really like about this is when push came to shove, and Jaden had to drop back a lot, And the Ravens did exactly what I thought they were going to do. They just rushed on the outside and said, you're not getting on the outside of us. Like, you're going to have to run through the middle of the field to get away from us, or you're going to have to throw it. And he did, and he was on target again, and he passed the test again. And in clutch moments, he came through again. So in a game where you can't do the things you want to do, which is they want to run the ball a lot, they could still be extremely competitive and make it a one-score game late. So this, to me, if there is the positive spin to come out of it, it's that. They were forced to do something they had not been forced to do yet this year, and they passed. And almost, if they had gotten a stop or two, we don't know what the result would have been. They would have been right there. The same concerns with the defense would have been alive, but they didn't give them a chance to show us what can we do late in a game where we have to do something that we're not accustomed to doing. So I liked that happened yesterday.
Yeah, not unlike that Bengals game where we talked about that game specifically because the Bengals pass offense was so good and their pass defense was so bad, where we pretty much said they had to have a perfect game to win that game, right? This game, they had a less than perfect game with the run game, having Jaden having to pass it. And they went tit for tat the whole entire time, essentially. Like, it never got out of hand. I think it's super encouraging to go against a team like that, where you had to be one-dimensional. And not to mention, they didn't have their best running back to even try to counteract that either, right? Like, with B-Rob being out.
Up in a second, but go ahead. Yeah.
But without that, too, though, like, we can talk all we want about Eckler and McNichols. They played really well. But you and I had this discussion last game where he was hurt, or, was questionable going into it, where I said, I'm worried about him not playing because their identity changes. They can run the ball, but it's not their identity when he's back there. And so knowing that going in, and him still knowing that, him knowing and Baltimore knowing that he was going to have to pass it way more, and him playing the way that he did, I thought it was fantastic. Like, that's I think that is the positive out of this game.
Yes. Especially
in the second half when we knew that's what they were going to have to do.
These are all new. Everything's new here. I mean, it's off to a great start, but every single one of these scenarios are the test. The test. Can you do these things if you have to do these things? And yesterday, they passed that test by being able to go, we know going in, we're going to have to throw the ball a lot. We know going in, we probably have to score 30 to win. We know going in, we don't have our best running back anyway. So we're kind of forced into this. Let's see what happens. And they were able to do it. And so, like, that is the big positive for me. And I do want to bring this up. I don't think Robinson being out was the issue. Like, I honestly don't actually think they would have run the ball that much more if he was actually out there, because while I think missing him is a big deal and maybe gets them to lean more into the pass because he's not available to them, so his absence may have pushed this game plan even a little bit more forward, I don't actually think the pass run numbers would have been all that different. Maybe a few more carries because Robinson would have gotten them as opposed to in the past. But I still think the same premise exists here. They were going to have to score 30 plus to probably win the game. Baltimore's defense had proven that you're not going to be able to grind it out. This isn't like that Philadelphia game a couple of years ago where Washington went in and went, we're going to shorten the game because we know we can run the ball on them. I don't think Washington knew they could run the ball yesterday and felt like the idea of shortening the game against Baltimore, bad idea. You can get down by 2 scores and you got to throw that out the window. I think they knew all along they were going to have to do this. So I don't being out was actually an issue yesterday. I think they would have been better. I think they might have run the ball a little bit more. I think they might have scored and not had a 4th and 6 at the goal line, if he was in, as opposed to what happened at the goal line yesterday. But I don't think him being out was the issue personally. I actually don't think the pass run numbers would have been all that different, honestly. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, but I think there is you might be right. Maybe it wasn't as big of an issue, but I still feel like that offense, they get an identity when he's running the ball. And we also know when he's running the ball, those 7 carries for 30 yards in the first half look completely different in the second half. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know how much the impact would have been, but it does wear a defense down. He does pop one off in the second half almost every single game.
Yeah, I agree.
Like I said, I just think it's an identity thing too. I think it fires up that side of the ball. And I say they're not fired up without him, but like you and I have talked about this, how that dude runs violently. He's kind of an X factor. And so I'm with you. Like, it wasn't an issue, but it was a difference maker. He's a difference maker on this offense is what I'm saying.
I agree. They're way better with him. Like, I'm not trying to pretend that they're not. They're way better with him. Like, I get that. I just think in this case, in this matchup, all those other things, like, don't hinge around him at all. So would they have been better running the ball with him? Absolutely. Could he have been a difference maker, especially in short yardage situations? No doubt. Like, yes. Would they have thrown the ball, 28 times and run it 24? No. Like, that's not what would have happened here. Like, they still had to play the way they had to play to try to win. Even Quinn said this. We hope to steal a couple possessions, and then we knew we were going to have to throw the ball a lot. So I don't actually feel like that his absence was the issue, albeit I don't want to, undersell what I think he means to the team. I agree with you. I think he makes them a lot better. But I put that as an issue, and it's not an excuse, in my opinion. All right, last thing. We've seen how they've handled wins, okay, which I think is another test. After the Cincinnati thing, I'm like, they're going to be smelling themselves all week. Everyone's going to be telling them how great they are. They did it on Monday Night Football. Eyes are open. Jaden made the play of the year. Like, let's see. And they put their heads down, didn't say a word about it. We're kind of like, we thought we'd be good. You didn't think we'd be good, but we thought we'd be good. And the next 2 weeks, they crush teams, like absolutely crush teams. So I'm like, they know how to handle wins. Love it. Test passed. We're going to find out if they can handle a loss. And I think they will. After hearing what they said in the locker room, hearing how they're positioning it, hearing that there's no moral victories, hearing, just the way they kind of positioned it, I think their head's in the right spot. Because you and I both know if they lose this weekend, what's going to happen, whether rightly or wrongly, what's going to happen is all the we're heading up, all this stuff, it's going to crash back down. They can't lose a home game to them if they're serious about making the playoffs, short of weird, odd circumstances. They can't. And I don't take anybody lightly in the NFL. I think anybody who does is ridiculous. You don't watch this sport. And all I know is I looked up at the scoreboard and Carolina was within one score of Atlanta late in that game yesterday. So don't think they can't play with people. They can, and they're better with Andy Dalton. I'm interested to watch them this week. That said, this is a good, can they handle losses? Because this one, if they're the way they're talking makes me feel like they'll be fine, but they need to show that this week because the schedule has done them a favor. They're not turning around, having to play the Bills or the Cowboys or the Eagles or some team where you're like, oh boy, this is going to ramp up big time fast. I don't want to see losses get stacked. The schedule reads, you get to go home and play one of the worst teams in the NFL. Let's see how you handle a loss and take care of your business next week.
I thought the epitome of how this team is going to act was, I think it was Ben who asked Quinn yesterday in post game where he basically did the, hey, coach, I know there's no moral victories. And Quinn didn't even let him finish. He was like, nope, not at all. But he said, how good was Daniels to keep them in the game? And Quinn actually answered that question, which I commended of like, yes, it's great that he can go, bar for bar with Lamar essentially. And that we've got this identity. That to me was like, okay, good. The head coach actually, after a loss, was very level, praised his rookie quarterback when he should have gotten praise, because we've seen it in the past where a reporter could ask that question and a head coach, usually an older head coach, would go, it doesn't matter, we lost the game, right? Or just doesn't really even expound upon that. And all I thought was, okay, good. He even moments after a loss can go, it's okay. We lost this one. My quarterback still gives me a chance to win. I'm going to give him that praise in postgame, and was very level-headed. I'm with you. I actually liked it yesterday right away from the locker room, the way that they were acting. I know there are no moral victories, but they talked exactly how they should have in a loss that really did showcase what they can be down the line.
Listen, I think the media can focus on the wrong things, in my opinion, sometimes. I do too. Can focus on the wrong things sometimes. But the head coach, who is the chief messaging officer of a team, needs to be based in reality. And the last coach wasn't a lot. And I think it hurt him. It really did, because how many times were we like, guys, back to him? And in this case, one of the things that I really like about Quinn is he's level-headed. He's very clear and communicative, but I also think he's on the same planet as us. Yeah. And he sees what we see. And, I feel like he relates to it. He will push back at things he doesn't think are right. I know he has, and he should have high expectations for how his team is going to perform. How are we going to have high expectations if he doesn't? but I also think he's based in reality. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate that about him, because when I do speak with him, I feel like I'm speaking to someone who we're on the level with, and I can actually have a conversation with and don't have to pretend things are different than what they are. And so I appreciated that too. But we'll see. This week will be very telling. The schedule says win. So let's go see how they handle a loss when they get a team that isn't a contender the following week and they get them at home. All right, we'll take a quick break. Brave Boston Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. Welcome back. Boy, yesterday, outside of the loss to the Ravens, that wasn't great, but we almost had the all-time trifecta, almost, and I misspelled East. Shoot, let me fix that immediately.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay, for those of you watching on YouTube, that's fun. Okay, look
Who
at
got
that.
no sleep
Quickly
last night? Who was
fixed.
that?
We had a near trifecta. So the Giants lose, not a surprise. Bengals season was on the line.
Close game though.
The Bengals aren't very good.
No.
I think we should all come around to. They have a few great players, but they're not very good. Obviously. Anyway, they won. Considering Neighbors and Singletary weren't playing, the fact that that game was close was ridiculous. But anyway, so they win. I'll get to the Cowboys in a second. I actually want to start with the Eagles. I kept watching that scoreboard and I'm like, 10-10 third quarter, huh? With the Browns, because we just saw them and I'm like, that offense can't do anything. They're terrible. And I'm like, boy, this is going to be a gift if I look up and see the Cleveland won. And then they didn't. And I'm like, all right, so they escaped one. And then I see the clips of Sirianni yelling at his own fans to stop booing them. And I go, oh, that's as good as a loss. It is. It's as good as a loss, really, because they've unraveled. They can't even handle winning in front of their home crowd anymore. They've fallen into the trap of, if you don't do it with the style points that those people want you to have, then you're worthless to them and they're going to boo you. And you listened to them. It's amazing.
I very rarely would say rewind the tape. I think I said to you on Friday, the best case scenario without the Browns winning was a close game because they're playing at home and those fans are going to lose it. And when I saw the highlight, I was like, yes, right. This is perfect. And then when I saw, because like I said, I was catching up all day yesterday. And then when I saw the Sirianni reaction, I was like, oh, it's done. Like he's finished. Done. This is the moment. This is the one that we're going to pinpoint where he gets fired, because you cannot ever acknowledge the fans there. They're always going to do what they want to do. You just can't acknowledge it. And you have to do the old...
Plus you won. What are you yelling at them about?
Right. But that's what I'm getting at. Like with this fan base, you have to do the old, we love the passion, right? Every coach in Philadelphia, all sports, has said that essentially. But when I saw him losing it after a win, I was like, oh, it's done. He's finished. Amazing. This is it. And I'm with you. I was looking at that score yesterday too, going, oh, this is perfect, because it's going to feel like a loss today. All of the Philly stations today are taking calls, and I bet you it feels like a loss. I love it so much. I love it so much.
I would bet they're calling for his firing anyway.
Yes.
I don't know, because I haven't listened, up there, but I bet they are, because that's ridiculous. And then I saw some clips from his press conference. I guess he's done this a lot where he has his kids with him, but this was the wrong one to do that, because they're going to ask you, what are you yelling at the fans about? He has to defend himself. He has to defend the team's play. And then he started cursing, and he's got a little kid sitting on his lap. And I'm like, what is wrong with you, man? Well, what's wrong with you? So it's done. This is Joe Biden at the debate. It's over, man. It's over. It's just a matter of time. That's all it is. It's a matter of time.
What I'll say is this, though. Him cussing with his kid right there might appeal to Philadelphia. So, I mean, you might want to back that one up. That might be appealing to that fan base. I'm just saying.
Maybe. Does this kid have a Go Birds tattoo at his lower lip? Because and then, of course, on Jerry's birthday, the Cowboys get destroyed by the Lions. So I think I said last week, I go, if they pull this one off after that Pittsburgh one, I'm actually going to be worried about them, because I buy Detroit big time, albeit that Aiden Hutchinson injury's terrible for them. Terrible loss for them. But I totally buy Detroit is the best team in the NFC. We'll see now with Hutchinson out. That's a big loss. But I'm like, so if Dallas pulls this off, it's going to be very telling to me. Not only did they not pull it off, they got killed, and Detroit toyed with them. They're like the Chiefs now. They're running hook and ladders with linemen throwing the ball to each other. They're lining up tight ends as centers. Like, they're doing crazy crap and toying with people. And then the fact that it happened there, I saw some stat that popped up that said Dallas has trailed by at least 15 points in their last 3 or 4 home games. Like, what? Remember last year, they won every home game they played until the playoffs. Now they're not even competitive in their home games. It's crazy.
Including the playoff game last year, the last 4 home games, Dallas is averaging giving up over 40 points a game at home.
It's crazy.
That's absurd in the NFL. Like, I don't think you can mess around and do that. And the teams that they've done it against, yes, are all good, but that's an absurd stat in the NFL. That's college number. Those are college numbers.
So, listen, I mean, off of what Sirianni did, I think the Giants are, competitive, but don't win a lot, and then the Cowboys are, Stephen A. Smith, I saw a little bit of I actually chuckled at it last night, because it's like, oh my God, the path to win the division is actually there. I mean, it's nuts, but it is there. If Washington can steady themselves, handle a loss, you can see it. Like, it's unraveling in Philadelphia again. It's unraveled in Dallas. And, the Giants probably aren't good enough to make a run and turn their season around to have a good enough record to actually win it. So it's wide open, guys. It is. It's wide open. All right, let's see. Surging Bears. This is going to turn 2 weeks from now. We got a good game with them all of a sudden because Caleb is posting the numbers that they expected. Jacksonville's checked out. They're also done. Like, because that was the London game, so I got to watch a good amount of it in pregame. They're done. Like, and I think they even said something like there was a lot of quit out there. Like, they're done. So I don't know why, but old Douglas P will be probably out by the end of the year. And I will say this for the Bears, with those weapons, if it clicks for Caleb and a very good defense, they're dangerous. So it's going to, in a couple of weeks, we're 2 weeks away, but that's suddenly turned into what's going to be a great game in Landover.
It looks like Caleb has finally turned the corner of like, okay, he can play quarterback. I want to kick this over to the Jags for a second. Doug Peterson, not a good head coach. Like, I think we just need to lay that out there. Like, he won a Super Bowl in Philly, but it was that roster and them gelling at the right time. The fact, like, looking back, you and I do this quite often where we can kind of look back at something and go, oh, this was the problem. Doug Peterson, remember he was fired within 2 years after winning the Super Bowl? And we were like, whoa, that's extreme by Roseman. And then now all of a sudden I'm kind of like, maybe this guy isn't really that good of a head coach. He just had the pulse of a team for literally 1 season and they won a Super Bowl. I'm so unimpressed by him in that run in Jacksonville because their roster's not that terrible the way that they're playing.
Maybe they should trade Sirianni to Jacksonville for Dougie P and bring him back because I think Sirianni would be the perfect coach for Jacksonville.
You're kind of right. He does look a little Florida man. He looks a little like he is Italian that it looks like he could be from South Jersey, but he does look like he could live in Jacksonville too. You are right on that.
And people, stop telling me I look like him. I don't. Look, I don't look like him. It's a fact, right? Let's see. Packers are surging. Not surprised. Jordan Love back healthy. I thought that was a sneaky, potentially good game, but they ran the Cardinals, so good for them. So they're kind of back. That's turned into toughest division in football now. Yep. Lions are for real. Vikings apparently are for real. The Bears are surging, and the Packers are back where I thought they'd be surging. I didn't see this coming. I thought it might be a good division, but it's right now the best division in football.
Yeah, one of my upset picks was the Cardinals to beat the Packers, and this one wasn't even close. And we've seen it before. When you get the Cardinals going one-dimensional, you can finish them off pretty easily. I'm with you. The question has been, will Love look good? Love has been fantastic the past 3 weeks, so they're back.
Yep. Pat's D gets cooked in Drake's debut. I've seen this a million times. I like the Patriots defensive group, but when your offense can't score a lot, it wears on you. This is what's happening in Cleveland now, too. Cleveland's got a really good defense, but their offense is so bad that they're not going to be able to do it every single series. So I'm not surprised Houston gets a win. And I didn't see any of it, but I heard Drake May's debut was pretty good. Let's do it again. Bake, Rattler, and Bucks roll, Han. That's right. We brought the headline back, playa. 51 from the Buccaneers. 51. Wow. You know, like, it's interesting. I'm watching this because these hyper-aggressive defenses are getting beat up these days. It's getting a little out of style. So the Buccaneers, I think they need to, I don't know if they can shift gears, but they do need to, clearly. But I said this from the get-go. I really like them. And offensively, they're very, very effective. Like, Baker Mayfield fits what they do perfectly.
This is another one, though, that this is why you just can't have faith in the Saints. Like, it's always something wrong with them, whether it's the offense underperforming or the defense giving up 51 points. Like, come on. Like, this is always my thing with the Saints. You can never trust them because when they're bad, they're downright terrible. So this also goes to New Orleans, just not being trustworthy.
Let's see. Chargers beat Denver, don't care. Indy beat Tennessee, don't care. Pitt beat Vegas, don't care. And let's see. Kirk steadied the Falcons. This is a good, you know.
Can I remind you just for a sec, though?
Yeah.
Colts beat the Titans. Once again, keep picking against the Titans when Will Levis is going. That's all. That's my take. Every week.
He had one where he ran the ball out of bounds and he took out the ACL of a ball boy. That was a pretty good one, too. I don't know if you've seen that one.
There's a clip every week. It's what's the Will Levis clip of the week? He's got one every single week. I just want to say this. As much as he's starting, throw all of your bets against the Titans. That's all I've been doing for the past 4 weeks. Do it.
And Kirk steadied the Falcons yesterday. They should have won against Carolina. They did. It was a close, tight game. Kirk didn't have the crazy numbers he had a week ago, but this is why having a old salt veteran quarterback in situations like this, he typically comes through, and he did. All right, we'll take a quick break. Brave Watch the Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Let me get off football for a minute. The Spirit won. So that was good. News last week of Andy Sullivan being out for the year was devastating. Don't know if Lacey Santos is coming back anytime soon, but they won yesterday. I was missing the gang because I was they had to kick off at 5 o'clock for some reason on a Sunday, but they did. But they got a win, so that's good. And they clinched a home playoff spot. So let's see how healthy they are once we get through the rest of the regular season. But it was nice to see them back on the winning end again.
Not only that, taking care of an inferior opponent. They've had a rough go of it here for the last month, I'd say, and they win 4-1. And look, the most positive sign was they're banged up, but both Casey Kruger and Trinity Rodman were back in yesterday. They didn't start, but they were both back in for a little bit. You and I have talked about this. Like, this team has dealt with a rash of a bunch of injuries. They're not going anywhere without those two. And so to see that they were back and ready to go yesterday, that was the most promising sign with a win on top of it.
Especially, without those two. But now, no Bethune, no Sullivan. We'll see with Santos. I don't know what their midfield looks like. So they've gotten hit hard. But, we'll see. And with stars like Rodman back, you never know with someone like that. All right. Caps opened with a loss to the Devils as we open the arena for our 50th season, Michael. How excited are you?
This was on the third line. Third line lost this game. They were on the ice for 2 goals for the Devils. This one played out exactly how I thought it was going to play out. This game got late, and like every time the Caps scored, the Devils turned around and scored too, which means that team's been playing for a week. And this team is just playing their first game. I
saw Carberry mention that, and I thought it was valid. Like the Devils had been playing, and the Caps had their opener. It kind of was a little ridiculous. Like, they had gotten a full-on head start, got their legs under them, and the Caps were kind of caught in a first-go situation. So I don't really think much of it, honestly. I agree. I thought the schedule played a part in this.
And here's the other thing, too. You know how this goes. It's opening night. So, like, your 7 o'clock puck drop, 7:27, right? Like, it's not an actual, on-time thing. This is a veteran club. Here's the other stat, though. Alex Ovechkin did not have a shot in Game 1. That's the 24th time in his career that he hasn't had a shot on net. That's an insane stat. That's not going to be the case moving forward. I have a feeling they're all going to get it going here a little bit. It wasn't a great start, but at the same time, it's their 50th anniversary. There's all this pomp and circumstance. It was a weird game. They'll be fine.
I have this weird feeling that, we're in the land of Ovechkin will be Ovechkin for 1 to 2 months. And then hopefully he gets all his goals in those 1 to 2 months. And then the rest of it is whatever fumes he's running on is kind of what it feels like it is.
Let's see what player or what team fires him up. You know how this goes with him, actually. Like, he's done this his whole career where he's just okay. And like, he's just a hockey player out there. And it takes just one player to nudge him the wrong way and wake him up a little bit. Let's see who that's going to be. They get Vegas tomorrow. Vegas has some of those guys. Let's see if one of those guys wakes him up a little bit. That's what I'm looking at. Let's
see. Tonight we get Jets Bills. What will the MetLife crowd be? So let's see. The more I think about the firing of Saleh this week, the more I think it's hilarious because they have a home Monday night game against a team that could beat them either way, right? They're playing the Bills.
Yes.
And they fire their coach. So I'm like, wow, they did this week. They're going to do it in front of their home crowd. They could lose either way. I guess if they win, then they're somewhat validated in doing it. But if they lose, and it wouldn't be a surprise if they lose to the Bills, well, what's that crowd going to be tonight? Woody? So let's see if they show Woody up in the box tonight after making the so-called I did this on my own decision, and my friend Aaron had no say in it whatsoever. And I actually want to see, because Joe and Troy don't shy away from this stuff. What do they say about it on the air? I wonder what Joe snarkily says about Aaron Rodgers tonight and the firing of a coach when they're just, what were they, 3-2, 2-3, whatever it is, with the division still very much in play, heading into a Monday night home game against the one team you have to beat to win the division? Okay, guys, you do you.
They're 2-3. The Bills are 3-2. If they win, they're on top of the division. That's where I thought the firing was so weird, because you kind of just should roll the dice against this team. Can I tell you real quick before we go, my favorite Twitter conspiracy
100%.
theory that's absolutely unhinged. It's my favorite one, though. And it was, how do we know that Aaron Rodgers wanted to go to the Jets knowing Johnson & Johnson was behind the COVID vaccine, and he went there to sabotage the Jets to get back at Johnson & Johnson because of Woody Johnson owning the Jets?
Let me ask this question. How would you sabotage something that's self-sabotaged for generations?
Just make sure. He's just making sure.
That's it. They haven't won anything. That would be, I'd get it if this was the Patriots. Okay. But the Jets haven't won anything. So,
but he's bringing his friends in.
Sabotaging what exactly?
He's bringing his friends in. He's got the owner and the GM doing what he wants. I'm just saying, it was a Twitter conspiracy theory that I thought was
no. He's not a good GM. He's like LeBron. He's not a good GM.
Right.
He's not good at that part.
Yeah.
We'll see. Give me the Bills tonight. I'll take the Bills tonight.
Exactly.
You're going to see some hands on hips early in this one from the old Jets. Give me the Bills tonight. Looking up at the box at Woody. All right, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow.